All right, welcome to the Gaming Lounge Podcast, episode 42. Once again, I'm your host, Sebastian, and as always, I'm joined by Dory. How's everything going, Dory?
I'm great. I'm living in a constant stream of games that I enjoy, so it's awesome. I feel like I'm that Sabrina, the teenage witch jife, where she's constantly offered delicious pancakes from every corner of the picture. It's like that's delicious. What do you mean that plate is for me too? Yeah, it's been a fucking gourmet. Also, we are on episode 42. It's a very good number. The answer to life, universe, and everything else. But yeah, this episode's real simple. We're just going to be talking two really great games, at least in my opinion, really great games. And we're just going to be telling you what we think about it and whether you should play it and how to play it or should wait. We're going to be talking about Avowed, and we're going to talk about Lost Records, Bloom and Rage. So I'm really excited to get into both of those. Probably going to be a shorter show as a result, but both Seb and I have a lot to say about both games. So we'll see how short it is.
Right, so Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, Tape 1. So this came out last week, and then Part 2 comes out in April. This is Dotenod's next game. Very much so in the line of Life is Strange, but it's not in the series, but it basically is, if you think about it. I think it even has some references to it, but we'll talk about
it. It does, yeah.
But absolutely. So if you don't know what it is, it's a narrative game, choice-based narrative. It's set in a fictional town of Velvet Cove, Michigan, during the summer of 1995. The game follows four high school friends, Swan, Nora, Autumn, and Kat. And they basically go on a journey of self-discovery, and they forge bonds. They become best friends during the summer. The story is framed by their reunion 27 years later, and they have to confront like a long-buried secret that once tore them apart. So basically, they haven't seen each other since that summer for 27 years. But it was something so major happened that it still has an impact on their lives that they're keeping it a secret. So, and then they want to confront it finally as adults in 2020. I believe it's during 2020.
No, it's not.
Or is it?
I believe it's 2022.
22. Okay.
I think after it's just as the pandemic. Yeah, it's just as the pandemic is starting to ease up a little bit.
It's like right after COVID. Like right as easing up. You play as Swan, who's like an outcast, and she is an outcast who documents her surroundings with the camcorder. So she records everything, kind of like Max with her camera, takes pictures of everybody. Yep. She has to record everything with her camera that her dad gave her. The mechanic allows players to record, edit, and compile footage, and you can create like a moving diary that enhances your experience. The game emphasizes narrative choices that shape relationships, and it influences the story's direction. So Swan is a loner. She records videos for herself and her cat. She's not considered attractive to a lot of people. She's overweight. She's very awkward. She's lesbian. She's still understanding her sexuality. She's still a teenager, and she still has feelings, but she doesn't know how to express them. She's possibly autistic. I wouldn't be surprised if she was, because she just has all the signs of someone who has autism, like the social
as somebody who is autistic, if she's not autistic or wasn't written to be autistic, then I'm the Queen of England, because I think about like a few hours into the game, I was like, oh, this is clearly an autistic character. Like, it's not explicitly an autistic character, because I think even in the mid-90s especially, and even today, it's much harder for women to get diagnosed with autism, unfortunately, because of sexist reasons, basically, and bad research. But yeah, she's definitely, if not on the spectrum, then not otherwise diagnosed. I mean, she has a lot of anxiety. She has a lot of awkwardness. She has a lot of clumsiness, which is often associated with it. She gets very distracted and spaces out, but she can also concentrate very hard on things. She's got her own set of special interests, like alien movies and horror movies, just movies in general, really. AV Club. She's got a lot of the telltale signs of autism. Doesn't mean she is autistic, but I as an autistic person, definitely read her that way. And would be surprised if nobody on the team intended us to read it that way.
Yeah, she probably Asperger. I mean, she's high functioning. She's not.
Yeah, she's high functioning, but
Yeah.
she's still definitely, I think, definitely on the spectrum.
Yes. So if it's basically a 90s nostalgic walk through life that I don't personally have, in the sense that I was only 2 years old in 95.
I was double Seb's age, but in this case that means nothing. I was 4.
Yeah.
I think I had just seen Lion King, so yeah. This game also is not as nostalgic for me as it could be. I don't really have any nostalgia for tape cassettes or anything like that. I do have nostalgia for VHSs, but I don't have any nostalgia for like tape cassettes and tape
Yeah.
players and stuff like that.
I don't really remember like until 99, 6 years old, like 5, 6 years old. So like we're talking like 99, 2000, and 2000 was basically the 90s. Nothing changed really. 2000. If you watch footage from 2001, it looks just like 1995. It's like we didn't really shift into 2000s until like the mid 2000s. I feel like we started getting into MySpace and emo and like everything. The Hot Topic, the button down flame shirt, spiky gelled hair. We all had
Kingdom Hearts 2,
frosted tips. It's 2000s. The Heelys. But so I don't have nostalgic walk for this game, but there is things that I grew up with that I remember, like the Troll dolls and Pez, which is still around. The Pez dispensers and Tamagotchis. I had a Tamagotchi, so it's not like I didn't have any of these things. Obviously it's 95, right? I grew up I'm more of a late 90s kid, so like my 90s was more like Pokemon and things like that. Obviously Pokemon wasn't around yet. So her 90s is completely different. But anyway, there is a supernatural element in this game. I won't say what, but there's a mystery to it. And we're still learning what it is. Let's just start with my impressions of the game now after the introduction. It's 6 hours long. It's tape 1. This episodic. It's 2 episodes. We're in tape 1. It took about 6 hours to finish. I'll start with my impressions, and then Dory can just jump off when I say.
Sure.
Well, one of the biggest strengths of this game, I feel like, is the characters are really rich. I like all the characters. I really like all their different personalities, and I really like their character designs. I think they're very different from each other. I like that they're all well-rounded. They're not like one-dimensional characters. They all have their own insecurities and problems that are different from each other, but at the same time, like something everybody can relate to. They're all awkward teenagers. Some of them in different walks of life. Like Nora is 17 and she's about to graduate high school. Like she's heading in her senior year of high school, so she's thinking about college. And obviously, our main character is like 15, and Kat is 15. So they're still discovering themselves, and then also obviously Swan is moving to Canada, and so
I think Swan is 16 actually.
Or 16.
She's not 15.
Or she's 16.
16,
okay.
Yeah.
Either way, she's younger than them. The Cat is the younger one as well. They're like equal age. So they're in different walks of life. Obviously, I mean, it's just like 1 year is not a big deal when you're an adult, but like when you're 16 and 17, like obviously senior year, you're thinking about college and getting out of there, and
right.
And then when you're like 16, you're still thinking about 2 more years of high school. So, it was really interesting how they wrote all the characters. I really liked all the characters. Obviously, you can basically romanticize all of them. Not all the characters are gay, but like I guess it allows you to play around being bisexual in a way. With the other characters, Swan. I think Swan is clearly a lesbian. I don't think there's any sign that she's into boys at all. There's nothing that indicates that. Like Max, you can choose how you want to handle it. Like she had Warren or she had Chloe, but in this case, it's clearly there's no boys in this game at all. Pretty much. Yeah. So
you don't even hear. I at least in the almost 5 hours I've played, I haven't even heard her father. Did her father pass away, or am I misremembering that?
I believe her father passed away. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So yeah, literally, I haven't heard a single boy or man's voice besides, of course, Corey. I think Dylan. Dylan is the only man in the game, and he's a total asshole. So, I'm sure the right people are going to be upset about that. But I agree with you though. I love all the characters. I would say Nora's my favorite. You can say that she's kind of the typical punk rocker kind of thing, but I love how much they committed to that. I mean, she's got the black eyeliner. She's really into punk rock. She's got a stepmom instead of a stepdad that she really doesn't like. So she's kind of got the Chloe thing going on. She says fuck a lot. She's very aware of how other people perceive her, but also doesn't want to be perceived, but also wants to be accepted. And I think that's a very interesting tension in her character, even if, it plays to very predictable results. I don't mind that. I have no problem with them playing with teenage tropes. I mean, these are real people, or could be real people. Obviously it is a stereotype, but these kind of people do exist, and in terms of like being very punk rock or being very anti-establishment when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
These are the kind of people I, sort of hung out with when I was a teenager. Not exactly like her, but in some ways. So yeah, I would say Nora and Swan are my favorites. I don't gel super well with Kat. I don't really understand what her deal is. She's just kind of a weirdo, and I get kind of weird vibes from her. But I'm not sure. And I like Autumn. She is a little uptight and a little like kind of constantly full of stress. But I do like that, when she's talking about her past and stuff, she was like, we were like the only, she's talking about it. She said, we were the only minority in the neighborhood. And so I always tried to be the model minority, quote unquote.
Sure.
And I really liked that kind of, it recontextualized a lot of Autumn for me. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Autumn as a character as well. So yeah, the writing's good and the world building's incredible.
Although I will say it feels very similar to Life is Strange in the sense that it can also be a critique, because like Nora is basically just Chloe in the sense, because they keep writing the same kind of character. Like Max, like Swan is just a not as interesting Max in my opinion. I like Max much better in the first Life is Strange than I do with Swan. And Swan is the same type of, artsy, loves to record things, butts in and takes pictures of everybody, she records everybody. Although Swan's obviously a lot more struggles with social issues, socially than Max does. Max just goes to a school of conceited teenagers who think they're better than everybody.
She's not even that bad. Rich boy school.
Yeah, she's not even that bad. Like, or she's just very nosy and gets everybody's business. Like absurdly amount. Like she has
absurd. Yeah, and I love the consistency that in Double Exposure she was still fucking nosy as shit.
Yeah, let me just lockpick the door. Like, why not? Anyway, this game is basically Stand By Me, but instead of boys, it's girls, and it reminds me of Blair Witch Project, which obviously didn't come out until the '99, but you can see the influence with the camera in the woods. And I wouldn't say this game is a horror game. It has some spooky scenes here and there. There's some elements where, like, you're in for example, you're in an abandoned cabin. You're not sure what's gonna happen, and there's like dead animal skulls around. I was starting to wonder if this game was going for like a witch vibe. Like, are they a coven or something?
I definitely got a The Craft kind of vibe. I was telling Seb about this because there's definitely some elements of the plot that remind me a lot of The Craft. One particular scene. But I was talking to Seb last night, and I was like, man, if they had just waited a year, they would have known certain things. Doing certain things it was really dumb. It gives me Stand By Me. I actually have never seen Stand By Me, but I know the general plot and I know the vibe from that movie. And I would agree, it's definitely Stand By Me plus Blair Witch plus a little bit of The Coven. They even have like a witch book that you can give to Nora. I spent all my time trying to romance Nora. I thought it made the most sense for Swan because Nora explicitly hit on her, basically. I mean, canonically, like, it's not even dependent on your choices. Like, she says, if I was a guy, I would kiss you, pretty early in the game. And I also think, like, opposites attract, right? It's not really true. Most people actually date people who are very similar to themselves. But anyway, I think it's cute in that way. Yeah. I think it'd be weird I also narratively thought that it would be weird if she tried to date Autumn or tried to, like, get romantic with her, because they're like two of the first people who are meeting. And at the time, I thought it was just going to be Autumn. So I was like, well, this will be fine then.
I try to romance Autumn because I like her personality because she clicks at me, I guess, personally. So I guess I'm romancing her through myself. But I just like her. Like, I do like how she's Well, I really like Nora. For example, I like Nora. Like she's a free spirit, of course. She's always that. So every
Right.
Life is Strange and Don't Nod and every game has to have a free spirit, emo, gothic, punk rock kid character.
Yeah.
But Nora, the weird thing with Nora too, though, was like she's genuinely afraid character. She's the scared character. Like every time they do
Yes.
something wild, she's the one that like is reluctant to like get involved. Like when they're sitting on the side, sitting on the end of the dock.
Yes.
She doesn't want to do that. Or they want to
or when they're crossing that big mossy log, she was like so nervous. I thought that was a nice character quirk too.
Yeah, I liked it because you think like she should be the one that's like open to do everything, but
and really like Kat is the one who stands up for you against Dylan. I thought it was going to be Nora who told him to fuck off.
Yeah,
but it was Kat instead because she felt empowered as a. Yeah, I love that line where Dylan's like, "Your business is my business," and Kat's like, "I thought your business was sucking dick." That was so funny.
I do like Autumn's like reservedness. I just like her personality, but. Sure. And she's like a leader. She's like the silent leader type. Like she's like, she feels like the leader of the group. Like she's like the when things are bad, she's like the one that would like step up and speak her mind. But overall, my favorite character was actually Kat in the sense that I liked her personality with Swan. I liked every scene she was in. She kind of stole this show for me because I just liked her vibe, like the way she because we always have that friend group that's like. That one friend that like always has your back and wants to fight everybody, like that's her, and I like the mystery of like I'm like trying to figure out what's going on with her, like because her personality changes throughout the game, like she becomes like this weird, she's up to something character.
Yes,
and I was very interested, and I was very interested to see where that went. Yeah, and we haven't seen it yet. We were still waiting to see what happens, but yeah, but that's one. So that. It's one of my criticisms of this game is that I would have preferred if this game was just a complete game and was ready to go and not be episodic because I don't like having to wait 2 months for the next episode. I'm not saying I'm going to forget everything, but I am not going to remember like every detail that I remember right now, and it loses its impact. I had this issue with every episodic game I've played. Because I'm a huge Life is Strange fan, and I remember when they were released episodically, and I'm a huge Telltale fan. And there was times where we had to wait months for the next episode, and I'm like, I don't remember. It would have been more meaningful if I had.
And like back. The reverse of that, it's really annoying when you go back and all the episodes are available and you're binging it. And like I just beat Life is Strange 2, fantastic game by the way. And every single episode started with him going. 2 wolves in a wild, wild world, and you can't skip it. And it's like, I already know all this shit happened. I just played the episode. So it not only hurts the people that are playing it now, but it hurts the people who are playing it later. If you don't let them skip that kind of recap stuff. It's like, it's a fucking wrestling metaphor, but it's like in a wrestling show where you have more recap videos and promos and stuff than actual wrestling. It's like I'm here for the video game. I'm not here for the recap about the video game I just played. It's just a little thing, but basically what I'm saying is I agree with Seb. Episodic content is completely outdated. I don't understand why Don't Nod did this, except to maybe be nostalgic. But like, I have no nostalgia for episodic stuff.
It was outdated in 2013 or 2014, whatever Life is Strange 1 came out. It was outdated back then. Nobody liked it. I think it only worked in like The Walking Dead, the Telltale Walking Dead, because it was like the only game that did it. And then like everybody started doing it, like in this little narrative sphere. I'm not saying like it's just I don't like it. I strongly recommend people wait for the next episode to come out to try it. Instead of playing it right now. Like, obviously, Dory and I are going to get it because we're fans of these kind of games. But I would for the average person, I would recommend they wait. But
total hypocrites here, but I would also recommend that. I mean, I haven't finished. I haven't completely finished it. I think I've got another hour and a half left in it, maybe. Yeah. But I'd also recommend that. It's just better as a complete package than it's always going to be better as a complete package. Yeah. But like Seb said, I'm a total sucker for these kind of games. I really didn't want to wait. I wanted to see what was up with this game and how it would play.
Yes.
I completely agree with Seb also that the believe you said this already, but the writing is a bit slow at times.
I haven't said that yet, but yeah, that was the next thing I was gonna say. But it's slow.
Okay.
It's incredibly slow. I think that's the biggest problem with this game.
It's very methodical. I would say it's more methodical and than incredibly than slow, but I understand why that would bother people. It doesn't bother me personally because I enjoy these characters and I like this world so much that I don't mind it. But I absolutely understand why that would bother someone else. And if you don't like a slow burn narrative, or if you don't like a narrative that really takes its time, and that's not for everybody, I get that. Then obviously don't play this game. You're probably not going to enjoy it. Even if you like Life is Strange, typically, because of like the way, like this is like 3 Life is Strange episodes built into one. So it's like it takes all of the you usually get that like high climactic point like at least 3 times for the amount of times you play, but you just get like maybe 1 or 2, maybe.
Sure.
So it's a different experience. I don't mind it personally. Like I said, I love these characters. I love this world that they've built. A quote that came to my mind is that a couple quotes actually, but one is like, if Vibes the video game was like real, this would be it. Like this game is built on vibes, like the pastel vibes, the alien vibes, the horror vibes, the 90s vibes, obviously VHS cassette tapes, every stickers and pins and everything else that made into the 90s what it was, camcorder of course. It's completely based on vibes pretty much.
Yes.
And I love it. I think it completely succeeds at that. I feel drawn into that world. I want to stay in that world for as long as I can. And every time I come back to the modern world, I'm like, oh, this is so depressing. But also, I was born in the 90s, 91, so I didn't really experience the 90s until the late 90s, 98, 99, if you want to be charitable. Honestly, I'd have more nostalgia for like a early mid 2000s game, which at this rate is going to happen soon, and then I will crumble to dust. But that I would have more nostalgia for than a 90s game, ironically, even though I do miss the 90s. I honestly was only really aware of the last few years of it. It's the 2000s really that I'd probably be more nostalgic for at this point in my life. But yeah, I agree. But I still agree with Seb. It's very slowly paced. It doesn't bother me, but I get it.
It's a strength and a weakness. The strength is that the vibe's really good. The soundtrack's awesome. I like that it lets you just sit there and absorb what's going on, which is a common thing they've done in every game now. Like for the last since True Colors, I feel like where they just let you sit there and absorb the scene if you want. If you want to get up, you can just get up. But she gets to go like. Swan will go in the woods and she'll see animals and it's very calm and the music's nice and obviously it's a vibe. They're just hanging. There's just friends. Most of the game is the friends hanging out with each other. Yeah. But at some point it's like this is where the episodic part hurts it as well. Is that like you want to get to the mystery part and like because they have to justify having a full episode of a tape. Like tape 1 has to be like it can't be a 2-hour thing because you're asking I don't know $40 I think. It feels like filler at times. It's like this doesn't really add to anything. We have to get the key on the slide, or like it drags. It's like, can we move a little forward? It's not like a huge deal because I'm patient and I do like a slow narrative. But tape 1 feels like a build up to tape 2. Like the tape 2 really needs to pay off because tape 1 was like setting it up so much, which is gonna bother some people. There's people who are not gonna like this at all if you don't like slow. All tape 1 does really is set everything up. Like tape 1 is full on. I'm just saying it could have easily been like a 4-hour experience in a 6-hour. They could have cut out some of the meat. I think
I agree.
Pace a little better, but you could still do that in a 4-hour experience. You can still have vibes in a 4-hour experience. It didn't need to be 6 hours long or 5, whatever. Depends how fast you go. I was getting all the collectibles, and I think the editing system with the camera, all that was cool. But I didn't really mess with it. I didn't
mess with it either. I did not care one iota.
It's whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with a camcorder. I'm not nostalgic for that.
Same.
I didn't start recording things until like I had an iPhone in like 2007.
Exactly. Same. I had a iPod. Well, not an iPhone, but I had an iPod Nano in college in the late in the late 2000s, early 2010s.
Yeah.
And I would record like some of my friends at college and stuff like that. So I have nostalgia in that way for recording stuff and taking pictures, but not with a camcorder. I never used a camcorder.
If this game like had burning CDs, using LimeWire, and putting music on your iPod, because I had the iPod when it came out 2004, that kind of stuff. Like 2000, I'm like MySpace. Like, give me a 2000s nostalgia walk, and and I'll be more into like. Obviously, they couldn't put Pokemon in the game, but they could do something like it. You know, like Yakuza does.
I mean, they basically put Tamagotchi. I mean, more or less, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I agree and disagree. Kind of like I like that it's so much setup because it really makes you care about these characters.
It does. It's a strength.
And at least as so far as Kat is concerned, I still have no idea what the hell happens to her by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
I can't. So she's still a mystery to me. So that's cool. I do agree. I mean, it could have been cut for time, but I do appreciate the time it got. So I'm a little conflicted on that.
Yeah, it's 50-50.
I do agree. I know. I agree with you though that it's a strength and a weakness.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about the camcorder a little bit. We mentioned a few times.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to like zoom in and zoom out on things and hit record. I don't know if this happened for you, Seb, but like sometimes it wouldn't make any sense to me at all what was considered capturing something and what wasn't. There was always like this little reticle over like a squirrel or a landscape area, and I would hit the record button and it would fill up the purple meter, and then it wouldn't give me a checkpoint. Or it wouldn't give me a check
I had this problem too. I wasn't sure what they wanted me to record. I was.
There's no clear instructions on how you're like. Am I supposed to zoom out? Am I supposed to zoom in more?
Yeah.
The game doesn't tell you, and it's like that's the main. It's right. It's like one of the main things about the game. You think they would have polished that a little more to make it more clear? Now, real talk, it's not a big deal. I don't really care, but it did annoy me. It's like this is like one of the main features of your game. Like you would think that you would make it more obvious. Like, you know, how do I get this collectible and how do I not? I mean, Seb, that must have been a nightmare for you if you were getting all the collectibles. I can only imagine.
It wasn't that bad. I used a guide for the collectibles because you have to, because there's just too many missable things.
Right.
And it actually enhanced my experience because I didn't have that major problem. Like it was an issue, but like I knew what to look out for. So like I didn't have to spend like another hour extra looking like how do I zoom in? Like the guide would just say like you can zoom in this, and like I do that for every Life is Strange game because it makes the pacing good, because otherwise this becomes a collectathon and I start getting more bored, and overall it wasn't like a major issue, but it was definitely there. My biggest issue besides the pacing at times was the technical issues. This game had pop-ins and unstable frame rate. The facial animation sometimes, like Autumn's eyes would be glowing red, like from a distance. Like when it was like a distance shot, like the pixels and their faces would be a little messed up. This game requires, I believe, high PC requirements. Although I didn't have any issues. Like I had a high.
I didn't either. I immediately put it. The default was low, and I was like, "Fuck that!" Like I have a 40 series, crank that shit up. So I put it on very high, and like it's beautiful. Like I did have a little bit issue. Like at one point, Swan was walking, and the camera wouldn't move, and I kept trying to be like, "Come on, like move!" And Swan would like do a little like twirl with her body. It was so unnatural and weird looking. I was like, "This is the real horror game right here."
Yeah, and then finally for me, I like Swan's voice actress for her as an adult. It fits, but as a kid, she sounds like an adult to me still. Like it doesn't it doesn't sound like a 15-year-old girl, a 16-year-old girl to me.
Right.
It sounds like an adult woman trying to play a 16-year-old girl. Where I feel like Max sounded more natural to me.
Should have hired Gohan's voice actress.
And my third problem with the game was the dialogue at times. Like I think the dialogue is strong from the most part, but there is some cringy lines. Like it.
There are definitely some things that made me recoil as if I had been shot with a shotgun.
Yes, I mean I'm a teenager and I teach middle schoolers, so I know cringy lines. But even for them, like they'd find it cringy. Like it's.
I will tell you the moment that made me cringe the most, and I kind of love this actually. So most music games, right, that focus around a fictional band, do their best to make sure that the band actually sounds good and is good. but these are teenage girls who have really no clue about what they're doing. And I say that with like all fictional respect. But and as a person who played music off and on for about 10 plus years as a bassist, and I was in multiple bands. I'm not saying like I was huge or whatever, but I played in I played live shows, and like I know what I'm talking about is what I'm saying. They are fucking terrible. Like this is one of the worst video game bands I've ever seen in my. And to be clear, I love that. I love that they committed. No, I know, and that's what I'm saying. I love that they committed so hard to a band that just sucks, like just objectively is not good. And it's fine because when you're Riot Girl genre or you're a punk band, it doesn't really matter because it's not about the musicianship. It's about the lyrics or the message, although their vocals are not very good either. And the lyrics weren't good either. That was the part when they're in the garage and they're singing and I'm like, oh man, this is really bad.
I thought the part when they're doing the curse that the lyrics that they were writing was not great. Like they're like, wow,
really?
They're like, wow, this is banging. I'm like, okay, I guess.
I thought it was for teenage girl levels. I wrote some poetry as a teenager, and so like just relative. But like relative for the average teenage girl, I do think the lyrics Kat ends up writing are actually pretty decent. Now they're not great, but I think for the age group they're in, I thought they were good or fine or whatever.
I think,
but the stuff that they did before Kat, I was like, this is so fucking bad. It's hilarious.
I think it's because I probably can't relate because I wasn't really a punk rock kid, and I wasn't obviously I wasn't a girl. I was in the rap music when I was a teenager. I still am. But I like all music. And the rock music I liked was pop punk, but it wasn't like that punk though. Like they're like more garage band heavy, Hot Topic kind of punk rock. I can't really relate to the characters. I just like the characters because they're well written and I respect the different point of view and perspective. But I can't relate to any single character in this game personally. I think even like Autumn, I have her same personality as Autumn, I suppose. But even her, she's a military brat and she's moving around a much. I don't have that relate. Like I never had that. I don't have any family like that. So I had no connection to anybody. I guess I'm a mix between Nora and Autumn, I guess. And I'm Kat's like height. So I'm always the short one of the group. I guess I think this game's gonna be more impactful for somebody that's a girl or a woman.
Yes,
because it's more about the teenage experience as a girl in the 90s, especially. It has like typical girl stuff as like it'll have like pads are sitting around and it's what girls did in the 90s and all the stuff they collected, their kind of posters that they would have on the walls and things like obviously it's just different perspective than me, so that's not a negative for me. It's just not something that connects to me as much. That's probably fine because I like games that give you a different perspective on things. Because there's not many games that actually give you like a 90s vibe and like this. So, all right, so let's start wrapping it up. Is there anything you wanted else to say before we move on? Because we've been talking about this for like half an hour now.
Yeah. I think another quote I had in my mind is that if this game was a river, I would take a bath in it. I don't know what the fuck that means, but just like
I know I get
the vibe.
Yeah.
What's that?
I get it.
Yeah. If this game was just something I could just stand in, I just feel, or just like immerse myself in, like I just feel like I would. Like I love the world that they've built. It feels so authentic. It feels so good, but it feels, realistic at the same time and not completely like fantasy. And then of course there's cuts back to the real world. I will say usually those are pretty well handled in terms of the transition. Generally the controls are fine. And Seb already mentioned this, but the music is all incredible. And the graphics are really nice. I also had tech issues, mostly frame stuff and lip flapping syncing with voices. But other than that, it's been pretty much fine. Yeah, for me, I would say like an 8.5, maybe something like that. It's not a 9, but it's really strong. The gameplay elements that are there are not very good, but that's par for the course, and I don't expect them to be amazing because it's not the point of the game, right? but yeah, I really enjoyed my time. I'm excited for tape 2. I haven't quite beat tape 1, but I've played enough of it at this point to like say that I enjoyed it. Unless like in the next hour and a half, something they really drop the ball narratively. But I kind of doubt that with Don't Nod. They don't usually do that kind of stuff. So, I feel like something Seb did mention too is like your choices don't really impact the story. It's pretty narrative. This was in Seb's notes, so I'm pickpocketing him. But they don't really change it. It's more about your character and like the girls and like their relationships. It's not really about the overarching story and how that matters. But I will say I don't mind. I still like. I always try to say like the right things to Nora as teenagers because I'm trying to romance her and stuff. So that like feels impactful to me.
Sure.
But like it doesn't really.
It's minor stuff. Yeah.
It's minor stuff. It doesn't really impact anything huge.
Yeah. So in summary, for me, I think the story is really good. I think the characters are really good. It's a vibe, as Dory said. The soundtrack is great. That's my biggest positives. I'm invested in the mystery. I'm still really interested to see how Tape 2 handles everything. I'm curious where the story's gonna go. It feels like part 2 is gonna be more adult oriented. But I'm surprised. Like I'm sure they're gonna have a lot of them as teenagers too. But like it's gonna feel like I guess chapter 2, like when they're all adults and stuff. And it's like
that's exactly what I was thinking about earlier. Yeah, I think this is a lot of it chapter 1 instead of chapter 2. Now, in my experience, the movie chapter 2 was okay.
It sucked.
But it was,
I don't like that movie at all. But that one movie was.
So hopefully it doesn't repeat that mistake.
I doubt it, but my negatives were the slow pace. Just like I don't mind that, but like there was just too much filler for me at times, and pop-ins with the technical issues and things like that. But for me, it's an 8 out of 10. I think it's a great for me. I mean, it's my kind of game. Like that's the main thing you have to get out of this. Like it has to be your kind of game. If you don't like these kind of games, if you find like Life is Strange corny and it's just too slow for you, you're not going to like this game. This is definitely for us artsy, narrative focused, kind of gamers that like the slow burns. If you're into like Call of Duty or like action game like Devil May Cry, like this is not that game. This is a game where you get absorbed in the woods. Like they should definitely pay these developers. Like small towns should definitely pay these developers because they make every small town feel so cozy and welcoming and colorful, and everything's a vibe all the time. It's like it's like a life. It's one of those weird things where like you have nostalgia for it, but but even if you didn't grow up that way, like growing up in the woods and hanging out like that. Like I guess I did do stuff like that, but not like them. Like they're always in the middle of the woods, like in some like junkyard or something. I mean, obviously, I couldn't just wander in like a middle of the woods and find like a random clubhouse and then just make it my own clubhouse.
I mean, I think I've said this before, but Life is Strange: True Colors should have literally been in contact with Colorado to advertise living there because that game made me want to live in Colorado. I was like, holy shit! I had no idea how awesome Colorado. And I had literally been to Colorado before pre-pandemic. On a road trip with Kim, so I knew how cool it could be, but I was like, damn, I want to live in like a little town like this. This seems so cool.
But I do like the supernatural element. I do, and I am wondering what it is, and I wonder if part 2 is going to be more horror based or more sci-fi based. I wonder where direction it's going to go.
It's definitely going to be darker. I mean, I think the first part's Bloom for a reason, and the second part's Rage for a reason. I think the second part's going to be a lot darker and probably somewhat deeper as a result.
Yes. So I think we've talked about this game enough. So let's start moving on. So while Bloom and Rage, the Lost Records, Bloom and Rage, the choices didn't matter as much in terms of the overall narrative. In Avowed, the narrative definitely, the choices you make in this game 100% definitely matter and changes the entire ending of the game. As I completed both games. I completed Lost Records, tape 1 in one sitting. So I beat it in one night. I sat down and played the whole game from beginning to end in tape 1. And Avowed, I beat it in a few days. I put at least 26 hours into the mainline story. Obviously, I'm still doing the side content, so I'll say 30 something hours. So let's talk about Avowed. It is an action RPG, Western RPG, in the same style as Obsidian and Bethesda games like Starfield or Skyrim, Elder Scroll games. Is developed by Obsidian Entertainment. Is set in the fantasy world of Aora. It's in the Pillars of Eternity universe. A lot of references from to previous games in this game. It offers a first-person perspective, or a third if you want, and allows players to engage in both melee and magical combat. The players can choose from various classes, although not many, and abilities, tailoring their experience to their preferred playstyle. The narrative centers around a looming threat to the land called the Dream Scourge, and it turns people and animals into frenzied monsters, like basically The Last of Us. They turn into like zombie fungus creatures, and they want to attack everybody. This is basically Days Gone in The Last of Us, to be honest. Players uncover ancient secrets, and you forge alliances with other factions of races. You basically go through all your companions' races, hometowns, and you form alliances with them. The game features a dynamic world with responsive NPCs, a day-night cycle, and a reputation system that influences interactions and story outcomes. So, we'll start with the game time. Like I said, I beat this game in 26 hours, mainlining it. Although, like I said, I'm still doing the side content. So I'm going to say when I'm done with this game, I'll probably be around the 32 to 35 hour time, and I think that's a good time. I feel like I really like that this game is not giant open world. It's open area. It feels like Outer Worlds, which is also Obsidian.
It's Outer Worlds if Outer Worlds was more fantasy based.
Yes, and I appreciate that. I feel like one of the biggest strengths of this game is the exploration. I feel like this game has fantastic exploration. It has the parkour in this game is really fun. There's a lot of jumping and climbing and shortcuts you can discover, and secret caves and secret treasures. There's treasure maps that you can find. I love that the treasure chests shimmer when you're near them. That's a great mechanic. I'm not saying the reward's always good because they're usually not so good, but the exploration is just really fun. And that's one of the strongest parts of this game, I feel like, is the exploration. The world itself is really good. Although I found the first world and the last world to be the two ones that interested me the most. I think the ones in the middle were fine, but they weren't like mind-blowing or anything. I really like the first world especially. But the last world feels like Mordor with the volcanoes and the lava everywhere. So it felt like it felt like the final area, obviously. It was like Mordor in the Lord of the Rings. Dory, how many hours have you put into it so far?
All right, this is the part of the podcast where I'm gonna be jokingly upset with Seb. How the fuck did you finish Lost Records and Avowed before I finished either while being a teacher? Now I know you don't have any kids, but I don't have any kids either. I only have a part-time job. Like, I'm not mad. I'm just impressed. I'm a little mad actually, but I don't understand. How did you beat Avowed and Lost Records? I've got like about 20 hours in Avowed, maybe 18, a little over 18. My the Game Pass says 19.8 hours. So I mean, I guess I just did more side quests than you because like I did just about all of them in all of the areas so far.
I did like 85% of the side stuff. So it's not like I just streamlined this game either. This game is not that long. This game is not that long.
Right. I know. I don't understand. Like, maybe I'm just a more methodical, slower player than you are or something. No. Or you're just built different.
Well, there is that. But,
yeah.
No. Well, first of all, Last Records, I beat it in one sitting. So that's why. Like, I was able to beat that in one sitting. I played it at, like, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, Lost Records, and then I finished it, like, I stayed up to, like, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning to finish it. Because I was invested, I wanted to finish it, so I did it in one day. So that was how I was able to have time
that makes sense.
Because also this week I did not have like any grading really much to do. The kids were all doing their projects, so I was very free all night to play games. And I have not been able to sit down and play a game like strongly like I have this week in a long time.
Right.
I just haven't been in the mood, so it just hit the right time. For Avowed, well, first of all, the traveling in this game is really fast. Like, there's beacons everywhere. So I was just zipping all over the map. Like, it gets getting to a place is very quick because the map is not big. It's open area, and I was just zipping along because I would be like, okay, the side quest is right there, and it's not that far away, and I would just be zipping all over the place. Some of the dialogue, I was just spamming the space bar, like the side stuff. Like I was reading it. I'm a fast reader, so I'm able to read it faster than they speak the dialogue. So this is just how I play games. I don't sit there and absorb every line of dialogue. I'm like spamming the space bar. And then I looked at guides and like hints and tips like you should for like gearing up and being like understanding what the kind of game this is, because obviously this game punishes you if you don't gear up, and it gets really hard at times if you're under leveled or under geared. And I always like I had a good pace because I knew what to expect, so that's gonna make your game time longer. And I'm not that gamer that just sits there and absorbs the world and like has to look at every little detail. Oh, look at the grass, look how nice it looks. There's always those gamers that have to take their time. Oh, I have to get my money's worth, so I'm gonna sit there and do basic stuff for like 5 hours and to get my money's worth. I'm not like that. I'm like, let's go. We're going to point A to point B. And I was doing all the I was doing side content. So it's not like I was just fat. I wasn't just zooming through it, but I was definitely going at a fast pace. Like because I played these games so many times now. Like I know the mechanic. I know everything. This game doesn't do anything different than I've played before. Like it's basically like a Elder Scrolls game, and I'm like, okay, I know the mechanics, I know what to do, pairing, I know how to play this, I know what to expect.
I have not played, as you know, I have not played or barely have played any of the Elder Scrolls games, so this might as well be my first time playing an Elder Scrolls game, or a modern day equivalent, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's probably another reason.
Anyway, I legitimately played this game a lot when I got home, like in the evenings. Like I was putting serious hours each night.
Yeah. You must have been.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's
so anyway.
Yeah. All right. So Dory, let's talk about the gameplay.
Yeah.
Because it's your biggest strength and it's my biggest strength. So
right. So we both agree the combat is by far. The trailers were making both Seb and I a little nervous about this game and how it was going to turn out. But damn, did it turn out well. Combat is very fast. It's very fun. All of the hits feel responsive. The sound effects feel crisp. The music is really backing you up very well. Generally, everything feels pretty powerful. Like I used daggers in the beginning, but then now I've been using like a sword and an axe, and now I've been using like the Giant Slayer and the Frost Axe. And then so I also use the two-handed gun every now and then. I mean, it's so cool. Any game that allows you to dual wield, especially with this amount of flexibility. I mean, you can dual wield wands. You can have a gun and a wand. You can be a wizard with a gun. Hey, or you can be, you can multi-class. You can pick, basically in this game, you can pick multiple skills from multiple classes if you want to. I specialize in Ranger. I didn't do anything else, but you don't have to do that, obviously. I'm kind of like a Ranger rogue type character. I focus a lot on moving around, flexibility, hitting like a few times and then backing off, then hitting again, using Kai as a tank to kind of distract them. And then like the stealth technique that you get from the Ranger class. I don't know if you ever used it, but it's incredibly handy. It does a lot of damage, and you can upgrade it 3 times so that it takes up less essence, so you can do it more times. So it does a lot of damage. And early in the game, especially as soon as I got that shadow, I forget what the hell it's called, but you basically disappear, and then if you go behind an enemy, you get a prompt to do a special attack. And you use it almost looks like the Halo sword, the Halo plasma sword, now that I think about it. But it just digs right into them, and it takes out a big chunk.
I thought the same thing. I thought it reminded me of the Halo sword a lot. Yeah, the plasma weapon, plasma sword. The gameplay is the best part of this game. I feel like the gameplay is awesome. It's clearly meant for first person. Like clearly, the third person perspective in this game is not very good. And it feels like an indie game. It feels very cheesy, cheap. It's just clunky. It's playable in third person. I'm not saying it's not. And I played it a lot in third person because I prefer third person personally. But the gameplay it was clearly made for first person. The pairing.
For the record, I played it on nothing but first person, so
I did both.
that could also be another reason why Seb and I have different kind of overall feelings on it. Because I noticed that third person was an option, and I'm like, yeah, if we're making it an option, you were not confident enough in it, and I'm not even going to bother. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, none of my issues are in the gameplay department. I feel like that's the best part of the game by far is the gameplay. I feel like the pairing feels nice. Everything feels smooth. The dodging feels
I've done
smooth.
almost no parrying, but it's good to know it feels good.
Yeah, so I played the Ranger is the spec I didn't play the most, but I had a mix between fighter and mage. I wizard. I jumped back and forth. I respect a lot because respecting the game is awesome because it's very cheap. It doesn't usually there's a punishment in the games for respecting. It becomes like really expensive, and they'll like increase the price of your to respect, but not this game. This game feels it lets you have the freedom to experiment with what kind of build you want to do. My character had literally every weapon you can think of. Like in the beginning, I was like pure wands and grimoires and stuff like that. By the end of the game, I was using two-handed swords and a rifle, and I was a totally different character. I was doing like whirlwind spins. Like that was one of my favorite skill in the game was that fighter whirlwind skill where you spin around really fast and it just blows everybody around. Like I was fighting the lady, what's her name? The lady with the skull. I killed her by doing the whirlwind spin, and she flew off the cliff, and that's how I killed her. That was over.
That's incredible.
I was laughing. I'm like, was that supposed to happen? Was that a bug? But there's something happens at the end, so I won't say that. But we won't tell what the ending because I did beat it. I used literally guns, bows, wands, grimoires, one-handed weapons, two-handed weapons. I used maces, axes. I used like everything you can think of. The only thing I didn't do was like a dagger or something. But I tried out everything. Personally, because you can dual wield everything. My favorite was dual wielding two swords. I had a sword that was on fire, and I had a sword, and I had a cutlass, whatever you call it, the pirate
cutlass,
a sword. So I was like,
I was tempted to try that one out. Yeah, I have that in my inventory too. I currently I'm using the Giant Slayer and basically the Frost Axe that Kratos used. So that's what I'm using. Yeah, I mostly stuck with two-handed weapons. I did use a wand a little bit, but I was never gonna mainline that. But yeah, you can do pretty much what the fuck ever you want. I will say also in terms of like other gameplay stuff, I also felt exploration was rewarding and fun. I did pretty much every side quest in Dawnshore and in the second area that's dying. I forget what it's called. Now I'm in Shatterscar. I just got to Shatterscar. And then I already know from what Seb's saying what the fourth area is going to be, although I already figured you were going there. They kept bringing it up, so I'm like, we're probably going to go there. Hot tip, if a game ever is like the secret society that no one has ever seen, it's like, yeah, you're probably going to go there and see it. But yeah, I do want to talk about the writing too. I've really liked the writing overall. This is where Seb and I are going to differ. I've generally enjoyed the writing, and really felt myself interested in the companions. Now, when I say the companions, I honestly just mean Kai. I really like Kai. Now, is that because I romanced Garrus in Mass Effect 3? Who knows? Who can say? But I really do genuinely love Kai's character. I do like Marius and I don't remember her name, Giata. I do the Italian city. But I just randomly it's just like City Metropolis, Italy. It's just like suddenly Italy.
They should have just called it that.
They should have just called it suddenly Italy.
It's just Rome.
Just Rome, yeah. But I like Giada too. I feel like she does have some good character moments, and so does Marius. But I seen better companions in an Obsidian game or in an RPG? Yes, I have.
Yeah.
But I still really like them, and for me, I always have a good time with them. But this is where Seb and I are going to disagree.
Yeah,
I think to some extent.
The story, which is a shock, I guess, for an Obsidian game, is the weakest part of the game. I think the writing is not bad. I feel like most characters are fine. Like the dialogue's cool, and I don't have a problem with the writing per se. My issue is that the overall story is not that interesting. It's not bad. It's fine. It's like I don't. I guess it's mediocre or at least okay. It's just not like it doesn't. Nothing in this game ever like blew me away. I was never invested. Like, oh my god, I have to figure out what's going on. Like I pretty much predicted the ending. Like it was very predictable. Like I called it like in the first 5 minutes of the game. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna tell what it is because I don't want to spoil it. But I just found it
Right.
very.
I know exactly what you're saying. I think I do, and because I already know one of the big twists of the game.
Yeah.
Now that I'm in Shatterscar, I think that's the one you're talking about, and I was like, I think this is the case because there's literally no other options that are actively presenting themselves. Like I did have that thought at one point in the game, and then when it was revealed that that's the case, I'm like, what a surprise! But yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of the companions, I find them very forgettable. I have no. I've just been a common complaint from people as well. I played games where the companions are one of the strongest parts of the game, like Mass Effect, for example. Like I love all the companions. Like it's just as important to the game as the main story. This game, I'm not saying they're horrendous or they're like I hate them, but like they just don't interest me. They're just not enough character building with them. I feel like it's so streamlined. And there's some side quests you could do with them and like it develops their story, but their stories were like the same thing. It was like they're disowned by the people of their hometowns and they have to restore their honor with their people. It was like the same story like 3 times, 4 times. And then like I would make a decision that was perfectly reasonable and logical and good. Like I don't want to sacrifice people to save. I don't feel like I should kill 100 people to save whatever, like a god or something. And like the companions are like judging me like in a negative way for doing that, and I'm like, shut up. Like I'm right. Like what you're doing. Like I'm like, it really got annoying sometimes. Like I'm like because they always give their opinion on sometimes, and then sometimes I ask for their opinion. Like I want to see what they think as well. But honestly, their opinion of you has no consequence except for the end. Like when if you make a really bad choice, they all abandon you basically. Like like the most evil one. I mean. But like otherwise, there's no consequence of them judging you. Like they stay with you, and it's like the game is not programmed in that way. Like they still love you. like they'll forget you did something evil, and they're still like hanging out with you. And it's like the dialogue's still streamlined with what the developers want you to do. So it doesn't. The consequences of the choices don't feel strong there. So there's no there's just
that's fair.
The companions just feel like an afterthought. Like it feels like they tacked it on. It just doesn't feel like it was a main core of the game. Honestly. Like Skyrim doesn't have companions, and so like it feels like Skyrim if they just threw in like well they do have companions, but it's not like that. Like this game, it just feels like they tacked it on. It just feels like
right.
It just feels like an afterthought. But I think the story overall was fine. It's just it's like COVID the game. It's like it was a virus. It's The Last of Us. It's everybody's a fungus. Like it's. People, it turns monster. It was Days Gone. Days Gone did the same thing with the bears. Like it was a zombie bear. It has fungus on it. Like it's like it's nothing new. I think the biggest problem with this game is it's very safe. It's incredibly safe. It doesn't do anything groundbreaking. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But don't expect anything hard hitting. This is not like revolutionizing anything. Like literally nothing. We've seen this game 100 times in the Western RPG genre. It's a very safe.
I think the reason I'm higher on this game is the same reason I'm higher on Pokemon Sword. Similar reason why I'm higher on Pokemon Sword and Shield than other people are, because I hadn't played any Pokemon games for like 10 years. When I finally caught up to the series and like had seen what it become, I was like, oh, that's so awesome! Like, look at this improvement and this improvement, because it's iterative and been happening since Pokemon Diamond, which was at the time the last one I had played. I think similar because I never played really any of the Elder Scroll games. I guess I just I'm really into the flow of the game, the gameplay, the story and stuff. I do agree companions feel a little tacked on, especially because you can't romance them. And there's an interview with IGN about why you can't romance them, and I just think respectfully, the developer's opinion on it is complete bullshit. I respect their opinion that you don't need companions in a game, and you don't, or in terms of romance, you don't have to. But her logic for it is that people would metagame and people would try to fill out gauges and meters and stuff. And I'm like, That's just a video game.
It's a
And like
role-playing
Baldur's Gate 3 literally just did that and made it look good. So
Yeah.
like what are you doing?
Yeah, like I guess it's not a fair comparison, but it does feel like great value Baldur's Gate 3. And you know, Great Value being like the Walmart brand of stuff. Like it's like
we have Baldur's Gate 3 at home.
Yeah, like I'm not saying it. I'm not. Baldur's Gate 3 is not a fair comparison because Baldur's Gate 3 is like one of the greatest games ever made.
It's a CR. Well, it's also a completely not a completely different genre, but it is a different genre.
But,
I mean, Avowed is more of a open area action RPG. And Baldur's Gate's more of a classic CRPG.
But I don't mean in terms of the gameplay. I mean in terms of like it literally does the camp thing, talking to your characters, role playing. Like literally, you increase your stats of perception and strength and intelligence, and it changes the dialogue choices. It's Baldur's Gate 3 kind of style,
right?
And this game, the writing's not even close to the Baldur's Gate.
Right? No, I agree with that. I agree. The Baldur's Gate 3 has much better writing. I do hope that critics don't fall into the trap of comparing every RPG to because then we're gonna get into like a Dark Souls comparison where like every fucking game has to be compared to Dark Souls.
No, you're right. I'm not doing that with this game.
No, I know, and I'm not saying specifically you. That's why I say critics because I don't think necessarily you are, but it does get frustrating where people were like, "Oh, Dragon Age Veilguard isn't as good as Baldur's Gate 3," and I'm like, they're doing completely different things.
No, this game, I can see the comparison with this game more than Dragon Age. Dragon Age doesn't feel like that. This is clearly like a more of a choice-based RPG, which is Baldur's Gate is.
Right.
And
but I will say the choices do matter because there is one point I want to point this out specifically because I fell into this trap. There is a specific quest that you get when you are in I can't remember what the second area is called, but you know the Italian area. And one of the rangers, Ranger Dorso specifically, will tell you something very important if you get far enough into a conversation tree. Do not ignore that. Do not be like me and get distracted debating about one thing or the other or thinking about this or that. Immediately write it down because the game doesn't make mention of this later and doesn't make a quest out of it, which is outrageous given the consequences that happen, but still kind of on me because I just went out of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, just remember it and follow up on it immediately. Because if you don't, there are big consequences for not following up on what she says.
Make sure you save a lot in this game.
And that was the other problem. I had saved, but I had saved over the save that I did right before talking to her, and the last save before that was like 10 hours ago. Sure. You know, so not good.
All right. Are you still there? Because it sounded like it disconnected a little bit.
No, I'm still here. Sorry, I very quickly turned off my mic.
Oh, okay. It was like it was so sudden that it felt like the audio messed up. All right. So I guess I'm sounding more negative than I mean to. Like I think this is a good game. So just to recap so far, the storyline is not great, but it's fine. And I think the gameplay is awesome and the exploration's awesome. I think the visuals are good. I think the environment looks amazing. It's very colorful. It's like Dragon Age Veilguard. It's like they go in for more of a colorful vibe. Everybody's more cheerful. Like there's some dark elements in this game, but like it's one of those. It's another one of those games where everybody's cheerful, and everybody's like more optimistic, I suppose. It's not going for a dark fantasy. It's not Dark Souls in the sense. It's like not a miserable dark world. Everything's colorful. The character creator is mid. It's not great. There's way better character creators. I don't like the godlike features. It looks like a colorful clicker from The Last of Us. I don't care for it. I'm not interested. I put the settings on to hide it. I just don't like it at all. I know it was very weird because all the characters would be like, "Oh my god, you're godlike because you have all those features on your face." And I'm like, "No, I don't," because I hit it. Like the game still registers that you have it on your face, and that was a little jarring for me. I didn't like. I wish they did a little more effort with the character creator. I think the character models in this game are not great. I think they look a bit dated. They're not horrible or anything. It's not jarring, but like it feels a bit dated. It's just not as good. But the environments in this game are so pretty. Like I think it looks great. Like visually, like the environment. Like I took a lot of screenshots, ultra wide screen, and this game was gorgeous. But the character models are not the best. It's a mixed bag. overall, but the frame rate is really good. I had a consistent over 100 frames per second on a 4080, and I never had an issue with the frame rate. It looked very good. The game was very smooth. How about you, Dory? What do you think of the visuals?
Yeah, the visuals in general were a little frustrating at first. I guess by ray tracing, they they put it on by default. I
Yeah.
thought that was a really weird choice, but for some reason they put it on by default. And so once I turned that off, also having your it turns out having your charger plugged in means that your computer generally will handle computer games better. Yeah, it's good. I love the way it looks, but at the same time, it's like it took me a while to get acclimated to it.
Yeah.
But overall, it's a beautiful looking game, despite some issues with the models and stuff like that. I don't know. That didn't really bother me, but I could look at the faces and be like, yeah, it's not great.
Yes. Another issue with this game could be the grind, the constant like need to catch up with the gear, because you get very over leveled in this game. Like you go to the next area, all the monsters are like way above you, and they kick your butt. You have to keep up with the resources. There's a lot of resource management in this game. Like you have to break down your weapons, and craft your weapon, craft whatever, or upgrade your stuff to keep up, because you will get out leveled by the enemies. I knew that going in because a lot of people gave me advice, and I looked at the guides before I played this game, so I was able to do a good job at that. But be very familiar that you're going to get your ass kicked if you don't do those things. This game can be hard at times, depending on what difficulty you play on. It has a story mode of difficulty if you want to play on the lowest difficulty, or easy mode, normal mode. I would not play this game on the highest difficulty because I heard their health bars are like basically a bullet sponge. So I would not play around with that difficulty. But so it's up to you. This game can be really challenging or it can be pretty easy. I thought overall, I thought I was more on the easy side, or like normal. It was normal. Like I didn't really die that much. I mostly died from like those sections where they had traps, and like they would not, if you get hit by the spike, you get thrown off the cliff and you die from fall damage or whatever. But I didn't really die that much for the most part from like enemies. But they do spam you with a lot of enemies in this game. Like you get they throw a lot at you. There's a constant stream of enemies. You really don't get to plan your strategy out. It's basically just spamming buttons because you just get thrown and thrown and thrown from waves of enemies. And then one of my other criticisms of this game was the enemy variety is only like 7 enemy varieties in this game. It's like you fight so many spiders and bears in this game. There's just so many bears. And little spiders. You fight those little lizard guys. Like it's like every area was the same enemies over and over and over again. There's a couple of times you get like a little new enemy, but it was like right at the end, like the last, literally before the final boss. It was like, oh, here's a new enemy, and it was. I wish they had more enemy variety for RPG game overall. Again, not like a major issue, but it was definitely a noticeable. Something like I had this problem with like Hogwarts Legacy was like the same 3 enemies like 50,000 times, and then that's what this game felt like. It was like the same. How many times can I kill a spider and a bear? In every area. I was like, okay, we're in a volcano area. Well, here's a freaking bear. Yeah, you know what I mean? It was like that's what they were doing. I guess I'm sounding a lot negative than I mean, because overall, so we can start wrapping it up, I suppose. Overall, it's an 8 out of 10 for me. And the reason why it's not a 7 is because it doesn't overstay its welcome. If this game was like double the length, where it was like a 40 to 50 hour giant open world game, I would have way more problems with this game, because that's when I would start really feeling this issue. But because the pacing was quite good and the exploration and the gameplay were really good, and everything was like streamlined, I was able to do side quests that were really good. The main mission wasn't great, but it was fine. I was never bored, and that's really what the strength of this game is like it has its flaws, as I mentioned, and it has a soundtrack that's forgettable. It's very generic RPG sound. There's nothing in the background that like ever like got me hyped or anything. There's nothing memorable about the soundtrack, but everything was just so streamlined and the pacing was good that like, and the open area is not open. It's not open world, it's open area. So everything just felt like really nice and flow. I was never bored. That it's an 8 out of 10. I'm happy with this game. I had a good time with it. I'm not mad about it. I'm not one of those people making videos about how awful it is. It's like horrendous. You know, some people really have an agenda against this game. I think it's a good game. I just don't think it's a phenomenal, amazing game. It's not a game of the year contender for me. It's not top. It might be my top 10 at the end of the year. I don't know, depending on what comes out this year. But it's just not. I'm not gonna say I'm disappointed. I'm just gonna say it's just a good game. Obsidian made a good game, but it's not their best game. It's not New Vegas. It's not KOTOR 2. It's just it's not. I think I like Outer Worlds better, to be honest with you. Even though I like fantasy more, but it's still a good game, and I don't think it's fair to always judge games based on how Baldur's Gate 3 is or how good other Obsidian games are. I'm judging this game objectively, and I think it's a good game. I think 81. I think it was an 81 on Metacritic. I think that's accurate. I think it's an 8 out of 10 kind of game. I don't think it's a 6 out of 10. Unless your expectations were like extremely high and like the way you judge the game. But I can see why people don't like this game, and I can see why people love this game. So it's one of those things. I think 8 out of 10 is an accurate score for this game. What about you, Dory?
Yeah, I'm a little higher on it than you are. For me, it's more like a 9. But I think that's really because I never played Elder Scrolls as a kid. So I just like really love the experience of this game. I don't know exactly how to word it, but the experience that this game is, which I mean, basically I could have found just by playing Skyrim on a million different consoles and whatever. But yeah, I love the combat. I like the characters. I like the writing. I agree with you on the godlike features. I think they're kind of annoying, but I kept them on. I just did the smallest ones possible. And eventually I just didn't notice it really. I do have like a little lazy eye thing going on, and I don't know where the hell that came from. I don't know if that was by default or I pressed a setting by accident. I also agree with you that the character creation is not fantastic, but it's fine.
It's fine.
Making pretty much a self-insert character, so whatever. But yeah, it's a 9 for me. I mean, I really enjoy it. It's actually technically my GOTY right now because I enjoy it more than I enjoy Citizen Sleeper. Now, do I think it'll stay my GOTY? No, probably not. And maybe it'll go down to like 8.5 or 4.25 or something out of 5. When I get to the ending and stuff, because I'm not blown away by the story. I do like the writing generally, and I like the characters and the voice acting and all that stuff. But
voice acting
is it Obsidian's strongest work? Like, no. I liked Pentiment more. I think I liked Outer Worlds a little more. But I don't know. There's some things in this game I like better. Like, for example, like there's no stamina gauge when you're running. Outer Worlds has that, which is really annoying. And this game also has less. It either has less loading screens or they're faster. I'm not, maybe both.
Yeah.
But Outer Worlds, that was definitely an issue.
Yeah,
for me, at least on my first playthrough.
Yeah, everything in this game is streamlined really well. Like the pacing is really good. I think that's what makes this game a good game as well, is that despite its flaws, because the pacing is so good that like it always keeps you engaged and you have more fun with it. You're never like bored or anything. Like the loading screens are like quick. It's nothing. It never feels like, okay, oh my god, can we move on already?
Right.
And that really helps this game, and it masks some of the flaws that people would have with an open world game like this.
So yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts. I would give it a 9 out of 10. I mean, I'm not saying it's masterful or on the level of Baldur's Gate 3 or something like that, but I do think it's a really great game. The gameplay absolutely carries this game.
100%.
It is by far the best part, but I'm a little higher on the companions, the writing, and a couple other things I think than Seb is, but not majorly so. I could see where Seb's coming from. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest reason is 8 out of 10 is because the gameplay is fire. I always say gameplay is king, and if the gameplay in this game was not as good as it is, I think this game would be a 7-ish for me. But because the gameplay and the pacing is so good, I think an 8 is an accurate score. I think it's a good game. I think most people are gonna like this game. If you don't have some if you gotta know what you're getting into, don't expect this game to be Baldur's Gate 3, and don't expect it to be some groundbreaking game. Overall, I would say get it on Game Pass or wait for a sale. I I'm not sure if this game is worth $70. If you're, I mean, for me, I'm happy and satisfied with my $70 purchase. I don't have any issues really. But I could see this being a wait for a sale game. But obviously you can get it on Game Pass. So that's Avowed. Dory says it's a 9 out of 10. I say it's an 8 out of 10. So both of us give it a good score. Like we both think it's a good game. So we're not like I'm saying it's a shitty ass game and you shouldn't play it. I'm
not saying it's an absolute must play best of all time Baldur's Gate 3 situation either. So it's just for me it's a really good game. From a person who hasn't played these kind of games before, I think that's really the crucial distinction. Is I have not played Elder Scrolls. I didn't grow up with it. And I'm really picky about my open world games. So this is more open zone, which is definitely more my vibe. So those are important qualifiers.
It's probably, I mean, technically it's my game of the year too, but I've only played 2 new games this year so far. Most of my time playing games this year have been old games. So I guess it's by default. It won't be my game of the year, but it possibly could be my top 10. It's probably gonna be safe bet. It's probably gonna be my bottom 10, like the last 3 spots, I would guess. But like I said, it's only February, so we'll see. All right, so that is our show. Next week we will talk about Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii, like a drag, whatever the hell it's called. I started it today. I should have it beat by next week. And it's a shorter game. I see, like, even the Steam Deck, my Steam Deck tells me it's like 15 hours. So we'll see. Everybody's saying it's a shorter side game for Yakuza. So I think Dory and I should be able to beat it by next week. I'm depending on our schedules and everything, but I think I should have it beat. It's also verified on Steam Deck, so I can play it on a handheld and stuff like that. So well, that's what we're going to mainly talk about next week, and any news. There's also a Pokemon show next week, so we'll see if there's any big major news at that show. But otherwise, we'll see what news is next week. Any closing thoughts before we get out of here, Dory?
Just that I'm really happy that so many cool games are coming out all at once. It's a lot at once, and I mean, Split Fiction I think is only a couple weeks away. So it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, week after. So it's a little overwhelming, but I'm still really happy that so many cool games are coming out at once. I'm excited to play Pirate Yakuza. Yeah, both of these games were great. We obviously had a lot to say about them. And I hope everybody will go check it out, or at least go check out Avowed on Game Pass, and then check out Lost Records once Tape 2 comes out.
All right, Dory, you all have a good night. I'll see you next week, and peace.
Bye, everybody.